Paramount President Jeff Shell is being sued for $150 million. And the details of this lawsuit reveal something that Warner Brothers might not want people actually talking about. So in a moment, we're going to get into this lawsuit and explain what it's all about, because if the claims are true, it might just explain why Warner Brothers are realizing that not all money is good money. Then we're going to get into the Saturn Awards and going to get into why Tom Cruise will always be the main character wherever he shows up. Let's get into this week in film. So the lawsuit filed by RJ Cipriani claims that he is owed $150 million for crisis communication services and for Jeff Shell's refusal to produce a TV show, which we're now hearing was supposed to be called Star Serenade. So Cipriani had a relationship with Jeff Shell for about 18 months, in which Cipriani would offer advice and be able to tip off incoming intel, whether there's forthcoming articles coming out about Jeff Shell or Paramount themselves. And in exchange for his services to Jeff, he would have helped to produce a TV show. The suit also alleges that Jeff Shell would share non-public information with Cipriani about Paramount's plans. For example, the acquiring of UFC for about $7 billion, which actually Cipriani knew a month before the news actually came out. But interestingly, there is intel in the suit about how Jeff Shell actually feels about the whole Warner Brothers acquisition. Allegedly, Jeff Shell believes that Paramount are overpaying for Warner Bros. Discovery. He says, "We're paying way too much for Warner Bros. If we could just wait another year, we could get it a whole lot cheaper." I'm sorry, but this is absolutely hilarious to me, because this is a perfect example of the domino effects coming into play. Paramount think they successfully trumped Netflix in that Warner Bros. Acquisition deal, but now we're hearing different things come out the woodwork about how they really feel about this whole deal and some of the shady business that's been going on behind the scenes. Being exposed for thinking you overpaid for the very company that you fought hard and desperately to acquire is just not a good look at all. Because in my opinion, it sort of reveals that acquiring Warner Brothers wasn't done in good faith, but for the perceived benefit that only a few select people know about. Personally, I don't even fully disagree that it's too much. But when your competition is offering $83 billion on the table, why would you then want to come in with $111 billion all of a sudden? Like, I get that you're trying to make a compelling offer, and some of the elements that Paramount are acquiring are, I think, a little bit more than what Netflix wanted to acquire from Warner Brothers, but clearly the pursuit of ownership blinded them than what it's actually worth. But it gets worse, because not only does Jeff Shell think that they overpaid for acquiring Warner Brothers, he also doesn't think highly of Warner Brothers CEO David Zaslav. The suit alleges that Jeff Shell said that Paramount would not retain him after the merger because they consider him to be incompetent and a suck-up who is enamored of Hollywood celebrities. Like, what is David Zaslav even thinking right now? Like, not only does the Paramount president think he's incompetent, but they don't even have plans to even keep him, allegedly, after the merger. At this point, he's probably thinking, like, I should have just stuck with Netflix at this point. Netflix were really the ones that got away. At least they left with their dignity and $2 billion in their pocket. And what do Warner Brothers have? What does David Zaslav have in the end? He has a senior board member at Paramount who doesn't like him and wants to see him gone after the merger, doesn't actually think he's competent for the job, and thinks that they actually overpaid for acquiring Warner Brothers in the first place. This is exactly the type of information that Warner Brothers does not want revealed about them. It perfectly illustrates why not all money is good money. Yes, $111 billion sounds amazing, but what are you left with now? Egg on your face. Let's see how this whole acquisition works out. I hope it works out well for them, because this does not sound good. And while we're even on the subject of Paramount, we hear through the grapevine that the first meeting that Paramount have had with Warner Brothers was not exactly smooth sailing. And you know what? This is actually something I kind of somewhat predicted in an earlier video. The way Paramount have gone about this whole acquisition has been so somewhat slimy, to the point where I said, even if Paramount are able to acquire Warner Brothers, they've kind of started off on a rocky foundation. It's kind of going to be a bit of a salty relationship, because you were even suing them a couple months ago because they wanted to see the details of the Netflix deal. And I'm thinking, okay, well, you're suing the very company that you're planning to acquire. I don't know if this is a really good move, to be honest. Anyway, it's been reported that during the first formal meeting between Paramount and Warner Brothers, David Ellison, who's the Paramount CEO, said that getting to that point was quite turbulent, while an executive in attendance shared that there is still a tremendous amount of uncertainty over here. We were hoping for more. Ellison provided assurance that there would not be mass layoffs as expected, but an individual at the meeting said, "We don't believe him." An insider who attended the meeting compared Netflix's first meeting that they had in December to Paramount's recent meeting, saying that Netflix's gathering felt more celebratory and there was a plan. But here, in Paramount's meeting, it was like, I don't know, just tell us what's going on. David Ellison reportedly spoke enthusiastically about Paramount and Warner Brothers spending more on creating new content and reiterating the promise of 30 new movies every single year. But there are some that thought that he still didn't provide the specifics that they were hoping to hear. Now, I don't want to be too harsh because this is a massive merger that has probably brought up unforeseen complexities that, they couldn't exactly prepare for until they're well into the deal. But this is why you don't throw 111 billion hastily without a well thought out strategic acquisition plan. Some of the outstanding concerns are expected layoffs, the dangers of monopolizing, and whether Paramount can follow through on delivering 30 movies in theaters each year between the two studios. It just goes to show that Netflix might have had its own concerns, but Paramount's isn't any better. And speaking of theatrical releases, Universal Pictures have decided to rise above the war of the film studios and actually remind us what is important about showcasing films: the cinema. So it's been reported that Universal Pictures will extend the time that their movies are playing exclusively in theaters to 5 weekends in 2026, increasing it to 7 weekends in 2027. This is a huge win for us cinema lovers. Now, granted, when you count up how many days that really is, it does catch up to the kind of usual 45-day-ish release that we currently have. But at least there's a studio that's actually thinking about the cinema lover. At least, they're actually making improvements and not fighting over billions of dollars. Moving on to the Saturn Awards, our favourite movie star, Tom Cruise, attended, and apparently he was a real standout participant in the whole award show. When George Lucas, a film industry legend, accepted his Dr. Donald A. Reed Founders Award, Tom Cruise apparently shouted out from the audience, "We thank you, George," during his speech. And I just love when film industry peers show each other the love and support that they so rightly deserve. It just means a lot when someone who's also just as respected in the industry also gives their kind of flowers to someone else that they respect so much. And apparently when other actors and directors were accepting their awards on stage, apparently they gave Tom Cruise a little shout out in their speech as well. And I don't blame them, really. I really don't. I mean, the fan base literally called Tom Cruise Mr. Movies or the President of Movies. I find that completely hilarious, but it just makes so much sense. And I definitely join in that as well. I think if your nickname is literally the President of Movies, then the least you could do is acknowledge him on stage. You know what I mean? In terms of some of the highlights of the award show, James Cameron won Best Sci-Fi, Best Direction, and Best Screenwriting. Tom Cruise walked away with 2 awards in Best Actor in Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning and Best Action Adventure Movie. And director Christopher McQuarrie went away with the Visionary Award. And I just absolutely love the bromance between Tom Cruise and Christopher McQuarrie. They're a really great team together, and I'm glad that they're good friends, and I look forward to seeing their future collaborations. So that's all I currently have for TWIF This Week in Film. I know the Oscars are this weekend, so it'll be interesting to see who wins what. I'll come back to you next week on my thoughts on that. If you like film industry news and you want to keep up with more, subscribe to my channel. Let me know what you think of Jeff Shell's lawsuit and what you think the Warner Brothers CEO David Zaslav is even thinking about right now with all that came out. And I'll see you in the comments.